Hey there, South Mississippi. Chief Meteorologist Eric Jeansonne here with a quick update on Hurricane Milton, which is just moments away from making landfall on the central west coast of Florida near Sarasota. And as we take a look at the latest satellite presentation, you can see that the storm is beginning to make landfall across parts of the western central coast of Florida. A little bit closer look of the satellite and radar. You can see the track over the last couple of hours or so kind of wobbling as it nears the coast. Looks like that landfall will be just south of Tampa, which is a better scenario for Tampa Bay, as it will be on the north side of circulation where the winds will be pushing the water out of the bay, but still storm surge is still going to be a big issue along with damaging winds. In fact, there is a extreme wind warning in effect for the Tampa Bay area. And also, now that it's making landfall just south of Tampa, areas like Sarasota are going to experience more of that storm surge going down towards Port Charlotte and to Fort Myers. And again, that landfall will be happening very shortly. Once the center of the storm crosses land in the middle of the eye, once that moves onto the coast, that is when official landfall is. There's that purple box. That's an extreme wind warning for winds gusting well over 100 miles per hour. Looking at the latest stats again, the infrared satellite imagery, the storm is not as symmetric as it was just about 24 hours ago because it is dealing with more of the wind shear and dry air that is filtering in. You can see that dry air on the water vapor. Notice all the oranges and reds on the backside of Milton. That is part of a trough that is digging in. You can see that dip in the jet stream. That is what's carrying Milton off towards east-northeast. And all of that wind shear is causing all of the thunderstorm activity to be on the northern side of the circulation. So that's why it is no longer that Category 5, but because of that, the wind field has expanded tremendously, and so those tropical storm force winds expand anywhere from 450 to 460 miles across, which is also why that storm surge situation is a big problem on the central west coast of Florida there. Let's take a look at some of the, let's see if I can go to this next graphic here. It may just take a moment to load, but you can see, of course, the storm surge potential quite high for Sarasota going into the Fort Myers region. So once Milton makes landfall, it will be the 5th hurricane to make landfall on the Gulf Coast, and that will tie it with 2005 and 2020 for the second most Gulf Coast U.S. landfalls. The number one, or the first place, is 1886, where there were 6 hurricanes that made landfall on the Gulf Coast. So we are pretty close to at least getting close to that record. Hopefully we don't have any more and we don't tie that record. But looking at some of the hurricane landfalls over the last several years, since 2017, these are all the major hurricanes that have made landfall, starting back from Harvey to Irma, going back to Michael in 2018, of course in 2020, Laura and Zeta, Ida in 2021. The Gulf Coast has been hit very hard with lots of major hurricanes since 2017. And this map, these are all the hurricanes that have made landfall on the Gulf Coast since 2017. Here in South Mississippi, we had that direct landfall of Hurricane Nate in 2017. Of course, Hurricane Zeta hit us pretty hard in 2020 as it was moving into South Mississippi, weakening from a Category 3 hurricane to a Category 2 hurricane. So you can see the Gulf Coast is crowded with lots of hurricane landfalls over the last several years. Milton will continue to cut across Florida. It is not a threat to South Mississippi, but we are certainly thinking of our friends in Florida as they continue to deal with not only Milton. Of course, this year there was Debbie and also Helene, which made landfall in similar locations. Outside here in South Mississippi, tonight things are looking beautiful. 80 degrees with a north wind at 6 miles per hour. Tomorrow looks pretty good. Temperatures starting out in the 60s. We'll climb into the 80s. Beautiful Cruisin the Coast weather. In fact, many areas experiencing really nice temperatures tomorrow morning, especially north of I-10. We're looking at temperatures in the lower 60s, maybe some upper 50s in spots. As we go into the afternoon, we're going to climb into the mid to upper 80s, maybe close to 90 degrees. and we're going to stay dry. We're going to keep those north winds 5 to 15 miles per hour, maybe some gusts over 20 at times. But overall, tomorrow pretty much very similar to what it was today. As far as rain chances go, we're staying dry. We've been dry for a while. Of course, October is typically our driest month. Hey, could we see the northern lights? Well, it's not a guarantee. It is certainly not a guarantee here on the Gulf Coast, but there was another strong coronal mass ejection, a solar storm that was emitted by the sun, and that can lead to the aurora being more active as we go into tomorrow night into Friday morning. Now, it is more likely that the northern lights may be visible across the northern United States. There are some hints it may try to get further south. Now, if you remember back in May of this year, we saw the northern lights all the way down to the Gulf Coast. That was pretty much a once-in-a-lifetime event. So is that going to happen again in less than a year? Well, that remains to be seen, but something we're going to keep an eye on. Here in the 7-day forecast, looks beautiful for the next several days. Friday morning looks like a cooler start in the upper 50s, and there are some hints as we go into next week. We may be looking at another front that could bring us some cooler temperatures.